Welcome class. This is the Getting Started for Rhino 8 for Windows. And our project today is the Townhouse. Each unit is about 1,200 square feet, and we're going to be utilizing a number of Rhino 8 features. One of them we're going to see right away this morning, which is layer visibility control in the model space viewport. So you can see some dimensions are floating around here. This is just one of the practice models that I have done over the last couple days. We'll look at a couple things here. And I do have a file for you to download, a set of files. So go ahead and do that if you haven't. What I expect is that you are following along and trying commands out. But will you have exactly what I have? Probably not. Probably not till you go through it with the video a little bit slower. The Rhino 7 getting started, we've done them. I was looking at the date since 2020. So we've done these for 4 years. You're going to find a number of really cool getting started out here that Kyle and I did, both with Sub D and then just with some of the, standard features in Rhino. Like last year, just a year ago, I did the snowflake watering can. So anyway, I usually try to do the architectural kind of getting started. Kyle does the product design, but we do have a little mixture out there. So like I think Kyle did a guitar. So if you're looking for a guitar, I think it's in this album. And if you spend any time on the Rhino website or on the Rhino forum, you're going to get an idea of all the types of geometry that you can create in Rhino. So some of the more flashy things like vehicles, which I never do. Kyle does those. It's just not my, to, some buildings where we're able to use Grasshopper, some interior renderings, which I just love for the visualization. So you can go through here and find just about every model and every category of geometry that are being created with Rhino. And one of the issues that I've had with the push-pull feature, other than this great little demo video, is that they never work in real-world units. So in our getting started today, we're going to know how big the model is, how big the windows and the doors are, and make it a more realistic application of push-pull. There's lots of information on the Rhino website if you go to learn more about what the key features are in Rhino 8, and I hope to utilize many of them today. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to put that away now. After our 25-year anniversary for Rhino, we are shipping Rhino Aide, and there's some really fun features that I want to show you today and develop this model. So if you've downloaded the materials for today's class, you'll see there's a Start Here model, and I'll be opening that up. This is one of the practice models, and I just want to show you a couple things before we go through a little bit about the UI and then on into today's session. I do have a Voronoi screen here and a Grasshopper definition that we can take a look at. But mainly this model was created with the push-pull feature and with real-world units. In the PDF that I've shared in the document set, there are meters. So if you're used to working in meters, you can use the meter equivalent. Here in the US and UK, we use imperial units, so those are what I'm most familiar with and more comfortable designing in. The dimension feature in Rhino has an option to show alternate units, and that's really helpful in these type of presentations, since I know that we have a mix of units in every one of the presentations. Now, in this model, as well as the start model that you have, you're going to notice that we have a bunch of layouts. And layout are the 2D pages that we're going to send to the printer or the plotter. So we have a floor plan, we have the east elevation, we have the north and south elevations. But notice in these layouts that dimensions are visible. So what I don't want to do, and what I only had the option of doing in Rhino 7, is turning off the dimensions globally. And if I only have one dimension layer, then they're gone everywhere. So it really messes up any printing that I want to do. So what Rhino 8 added was an option to control the layer visibility in the model viewports only. And we have 4 of them. So we have perspective, we have top, we have front, we have right by default. And I'm also going to have you open up a left view when we get started today. But I want to show you this because what I do is I like to keep all of my layer columns together. So you can do this in a new model. Doesn't matter what model you're in, Rhino is going to remember them. So I'm going to be a little bit more forceful here and stretch this out. And in the layer panel, which you can pick up here on layer and open it up. You can also pick on the gear up here and show panels and open that up. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those panels. To show you this one Rhino 8 feature, I'm going to drag the model space visibility over to the global visibility. And that way I have them right next to each other. Now this one is a little different. This one controls whether a layer is on or off in a new detail. So you have to know, I think, a little bit more about layouts and details before that's really helpful. So you could keep that one over here. But I like these two together because it really gives me all my options in one place. So watch what happens when I turn off the dimension in the model. It's no longer visible in the model. But if I go over to my other elevations, they are visible. And that was something that users asked about for a long time in Rhino. So now we have a way to control model space visibility and not affect the layout. So I hope you'll think about that option as we're working through the model, because it is a very important one. So before we get started, if I go up here to new, Rhino for Windows wants to know what to do with the model that I have open. And I only get to open one. If you have used the Mac, you know you can have multiple documents. So you have to be a little bit more conscious of what models you have open. But Windows is going to take care of that for you because you only get one. So I don't really have anything here to save. I just wanted to show you what we'd be doing. So I'm going to pick no to save my practice model. And now I can begin a new model with any one of these units. And in addition to setting the default unit, it also, in this new model, I have a number of annotation styles that I can make current. And those annotation styles are depending on what unit you picked. So the units are set for both the model and the layout and the tolerance. And that's what you get out of using a template, one of the templates that, that comes with Rhino. You also get a set of default layers, and they're not that big of a deal, but they're there, and you can very quickly begin working. You can pick new layer and add additional layers. You can assign a random color if you have trouble deciding on a color. And the layers are the levels that we're going to break our model into so that we have control over what we do, what we edit, and what we print. And also the layers are going to give us a place to add a material. And so what's really common is when I'm working on a model, I'll have an exterior wall layer, maybe two. I'll have a few interior wall layers, depending on what the materials are. And then I'll have layers like glass or facade or brick or roof. And I'm going to add my materials to those layers. So everything that I put on those layers already has a material. And so I can very quickly move into render mode. And when you start with one of the default templates, there are no materials that are assigned. So you have a little bit more work to do. Saving your own templates is highly recommended. And you'll notice that when we begin our project for today with the Start Here model, named in capital letters, that you can download off the materials page, um, it will already have layers made, it will already have materials assigned, and it will be very efficient to begin a new model. And as you work with Rhino, you're going to find that there's probably a common set or a common theme to how you name your layers. Go ahead and just take a tour here around our model here, and then we're going to open up a couple of panels. You can see I have quite a few already open here. Rhino is organized in a hierarchy, and you're going to see that hierarchy reflected up here in the menus. And if I make layer 01 current and I draw a rectangle, now one thing I have on are Gumball and Auto CPlane. I'm going to off for just a little bit here. And let me do one more here. There are a few of you that aren't muted. I'm going to go ahead and mute you because I'm getting a little bit of feedback going on with the recording. Okay, so if I have this curve here, I can very quickly move it into a surface. So I have a curve menu, I have a surface menu. Surface from PlanarSrf means that I now have a curve, but I should say, I have my curve, but I also have a surface. And if I want this to go on a different layer, this is my favorite way to put objects on a different layer. It's not the only way. There are quite a few I could kind of show you, just, go through the litany. But if I have an object highlighted, I can put it on a different layer down here just by picking in the status bar. And now that I have a curve and a surface, I could make layer 03 current and go to solid and extrude surface straight and come up with a solid or a closed piece of geometry. So we now have 3 of the objects that Rhino creates here in our model, and we're viewing each of those in a different viewport or window. Okay, so so all of those commands can be taken from the menu. They can be taken also from the toolbar. So to create a rectangle, if I go back to this layer, I can pick the command from the toolbar. And I'm going to show you a way that you'll always know where a command is. And you can also just type in a command and it will autocomplete. And what's great about this is that the help will tell you which menu and toolbar that command is on. So you don't need to go it alone here. Rhino is actually here to help. And I always point out that if you start one of Kyle's videos and he's talking about the loft command and you have no idea where it is, you can type it in and go to that command. But how are we going to get more information from Rhino? The way you're going to do that is by picking and making active the help panel. Now, if you've closed the help panel for any reason, you can reopen it. up here under the gear and come down to show panels. And you can see I have quite a few open, but there's two I want you to open right now that you probably don't have open. Help, and scroll down to the bottom and open tutorials. And the others we can add in as we need them. Help. When I type in a command or I take it from a toolbar, the help brings up information on that command. And what I think is invaluable here is that I get a little image of what the button looks like. So if you're really committed to using the buttons, this is a great way to learn what those images are. And if I go over here to Surface Tools, then I can see where the loft command is. And if I want to use another command called surface from planar curves, which we're going to do a lot of in this exercise, I can also see where that command is. And another thing that you can do with the toolbars is you can tear off a toolbar and keep it open. And that's what I've done with this toolbar. So let's do it together. From Solid Tools, I'm going to open up the Push-Pull toolbar. And there's two things that I'm going to do with this toolbar. One is I'm going to very quickly access commands that we use in the push-pull method of modeling. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy buttons that I use a lot. And that way I can build on the push-pull toolbar and make it much more useful for the work that I'm doing. So I'm going to grab the push-pull toolbar and did everyone see how to take it off? Notice the little triangle in the corner? All you have to do is hold down that left mouse button and pick on the bar and tear it off. Now, you can resize it, but I'm going to be docking this at the top. And that is going to make a big difference for me because that's the shape that the toolbar is going to be. Okay, so I can't make it vertical because I'm going to be docking it horizontally. So why bother? So I'm going to pick it up with the 4 arrows and I'm going to bring it up here and I'm going to aim for that lavender looking shaded area. And when I do that, push-pull is added up here to the command line. And if you have a monitor that's longer in the X direction than the Y direction, like most monitors are, you can put a lot more tools up there. So one of the commands that I want to add up there is off of Surface Tools, and it's called Surface from Planar Curves. So watch what happens when I hold down the Control key. I can grab Surface from Planar Curves and add it up here. So now that's really easy to get to. Even if I'm on the Curve menu, I can get to Surface from Planar Curves. And Loft, for this particular exercise, Loft isn't super important. Surface from Planar Curves and Extrude is a little more important. So I'm going to hold down the Control key and grab Extrude and also put that up there. Now there's another command that I use a lot in this exercise, and it's called Offset Curve. So I'm going to also do that. Hold down the Control key and I'm going to drag it over here. So this toolbar is becoming more custom for what we're going to be doing in this exercise. If you don't know where a command is, if we're talking about offset and you're like, I have no idea where she took that command from, type it in and then look over here in your help panel. And it's going to show you an image, tell you where it's located, give you a video on how to use it. So a lot of good stuff. Let's look at another panel, and it's the one with the little mortar cap. It's the tutorials panel. Now the tutorials panel has level 1, level 2, sample models, and the user guide. These are going to be specifically updated for Rhino Aide um, this year. My plan is to have them done by September when the schools start. It doesn't mean you can't use it with Rhino 7, with Rhino 8. So they were written for Rhino 7. They work with Rhino 8. There's some new stuff we want to add. There always is. So feel free to take a look at that guide as well as the user guide, and there's also a level 2. Let's go up to solid and cylinder, and let's just use the top view to create a cylinder any size. And let's also, what do we have? We haven't done a sphere. We could create a box directly. How about a cone? Let's create a cone, and if you pick on layer 04, you can create a different layer. And there's also a sphere. So up under solid and sphere, I can do a center radius sphere. I can do a 2-point sphere. Take a look at a few things that we've just created. Now, one of the most important tools that you're going to use in Rhino is called the Gumball. So I want to go through it before we go into our model, and I'm going to turn on the Gumball. And when you look at what we've done here, you're probably thinking, well, let's go ahead and arrange it. Well, I could take the move command, but for something like arranging geometry, you may just want to use the Gumball. And the Gumball turns on and shows you arrows that you can move the geometry to a new location. Now, you can move it just by dragging the Gumball widget arrows, or you can move by typing in a number. And we're going to see that as we work on our project for today, that if you wanted to move the box and you want it to go, let's say 5 units in that direction, you can type in 5 and it moves 5 units in that direction. If I want to move the cone 5 units in the Z direction, I can do that as well. Another important thing that you're going to use in Rhino is the undo, and you can undo with Control Z. So if you go up here to edit, you can see our shortcut keys here for undo and redo and cut and copy and paste, and all of those are available. So the Gumball has a couple of other features, and not only can it move and move a relative distance, but it can also scale and rotate. So if I wanted to turn this sphere into an ellipse, all I have to do is drag one of the scale boxes. So I can use the scale boxes to scale the sphere in a specific direction. I can also type in a number, and I can type in 2, so it'll scale it twice in that direction. When we're using the Gumball for move, scale, rotate, I want you to know that the technical commands are still there. It's not like the Gumball is going to replace those, but it gives you a way to very quickly go in and manipulate your model. And you don't always have to have one of the technical, move, copy, scale, rotate commands. A lot of times you do, but there are points where it's very easy to just rotate using the Gumball. And of course, we have ortho on, which is restricting our cursor movement. We can turn that off and be able to rotate at any angle. We can also type in a rotation angle. Okay, and you by default, the Gumball uses the centroid of the object or set of objects. And if you start having to move the Gumball, in my opinion, the Gumball widget, I always go back to using the technical command, but that's just my preference. So rotate, scale, move. One of the other commands that we have available to us here on the Gumball is copy. So I can pick both of these objects with a window, a crossing window, or an enclosed window if I pull to the right and enclose everything. Okay, and now I can copy these. So when I move, if I tap the Alt key, there's a plus, and I can set those down and end up with a copy of that geometry. So move, copy, scale, rotate, all in the Gumball widget. Now, there's another feature that Rhino Aide has added, and it's called Auto CPlane. And if this gets turned on and you don't know it's on, it could be trouble. So it's a really good idea today that we take a look at it. It's extremely powerful when you're using it and you want to be using it, but it can be very frustrating if it gets on and you don't know what's going on. So let's take a look at it. Auto CPlane. In the old days, we used to have to create a construction plane. There's a whole toolbar dedicated to construction plane, and that's the plane that you're working on when you are creating new geometry. One of my favorites was 3 points, use that a lot, as well as to object and to surface. Rhino 8 is going to do that for you. So if I pick on one of these surfaces, it will automatically set the construction plane. So if I grab this surface and I tap the Alt key and copy it, watch what happens when I pick on that surface. It moves the construction plane to that location. If I hold down Shift and Control, you can see that the construction plane has moved to that location. Now, this is just a surface, so I don't have to do anything but pick on that surface. It'll actually work with a curve as well. So if I move this curve up here, you can see that it automatically sets the construction plane and moved it. But what if I want the construction plane to be on the cylinder? The cylinder is a collection of surfaces. And if I hold down Shift and Control, then I'll be able to sub-select that surface and set the construction plane. So Shift and Control together, and when you pick on that object, you can see that we're on the construction plane. So how do I prove that we're on the construction plane? Let me create a cylinder. And when I create that cylinder, it's being created on that construction plane. But what if I hold down Shift and Control and I pick on that surface? Okay, well, now I can draw on that construction plane. So I'm going to right click up here and pick cylinder and just draw a cylinder on that construction plane. So you can see I could do this all day long. It's just so wonderful to use this auto CPlane. You can also name your CPlane if you know you're going to be using it a lot, like first floor, second floor, roof. And this is where the push-pull comes in. So if I use a command here called Inset Face, I can pick on this surface and I can inset the face. I'm going to type in 1, which is still pretty big, so I'll type in 0.5 and I will inset. And notice it says split equals no. For this one, I'm going to pick yes. Okay, now that I've split that face, I can use push-pull and pick on that face and pull it. And I can type in a distance as long as I get the direction going, like 1. Okay, so that's the core principle of push-pull. And I can use inset again, pick on this new surface, and split equals no. And that way I'm just creating a curve. So if I wanted to extrude this and create a totally separate piece of geometry, I can. So that's the advantage of doing that. It turns out that if I push pull, it will be unioning all of these together. So maybe I want to push this one back instead. Okay, so that's the concept of push-pull that we're going to be putting to use in the townhouse exercise. But before we do that, I want to make a few curves here using direct distance input. And one command that I like to use when I've been working on Rhino, especially with Auto CPlane, is sometimes I just want to go back to the default 4 views. And this command up here on the standard toolbar called 4 views is amazing. It just brings us back to where we were, the construction planes and the views of the default viewports. Okay, so let's start out with a polyline, and I can type in the exact place where I want that polyline to begin. 0 is a shortcut for 0, 0. And I can change my construction plane. I could change my layer. I'm drawing on the current construction plane. And as I'm drawing, ortho is going to restrict the cursor movement. And my ortho is set to 45. So if you right click here on ortho and go to set ortho angle, you can type in 45 and do that as well. By default, it's set to 90, which is a little restrictive to me. I actually like it set to 15. I could type in a relative rectangular coordinate here, like r minus 1, comma, minus 1. And Rhino will go in the -1 direction in the x and the y. Okay, so that's a relative coordinate. Okay, I can also just type in a distance. So if I want to go 5 units in any of these directions, all I have to do is type in 5 and pick. Now, if I don't like 5 and I want to type in 2, not 52, I can type in 2 and then enter. Okay, so you can see that direct distance input is one of the more helpful ways to draw. Now, if I need the technical polar coordinate, I can also enter that. And if I need to pick on existing geometry, I have my O-snaps over here to help, and they're on the panel on the right side. So I can use that endpoint O-snap, and using direct distance input and ortho, I can type in 5. Now, if I want to draw at an angle other than 45, let's say 15 degrees, I can type in angle 15, and then ortho will temporarily restrict my cursor movement to 15. And I can type in a distance here, or I can just pick. And then I'm back to 45 degrees unless I pick something else. Okay, and there is another feature in Rhino called Smart Track, and Smart Track will bring me back to the beginning point by taking off a tracking line and allowing me to pick on that tracking line. And you can cast off multiple tracking lines and pick where they intersect. It's a little bit hard to use, I think, in the beginning with Rhino, but just know that it's there. And when you're done drawing your curve, you have control points on it, and you can modify the curve by using those control points. You can also delete control points. So I can delete that control point. I usually like to window around them so that, and this one, I'm going to line up over here, and now we have a closed curve. Now, if it were closed, I can close it up using a command called close curve, and it saves a lot of time. I can explode this into individual parts. I can delete those subcurves. I can join this back together, and then I can close curve. And when I close curve, it turns back into a closed polyline curve. Okay, that's just a little introduction to curves. Curves are extremely important because they are used for input for surfaces. There's also a feature in Rhino called Record History. We're not going to use it much today, but just remember that it's there. If I want to mirror this set of curves, I can turn on Record History, and the mirrored curve is now associated with the original. So if I move them, you can see they move closer together. If I window those control points, they change together. So there's a point in our exercise where we're going to mirror the townhouse, and if we turn history on, then any changes to one side are going to happen in the other side. Now, I haven't saved this, so let's save as, and we're going to call this just practice with Rhino. And notice that I'm saving Rhino 8. If you were going to be passing this on to someone who had Rhino 7, then you would want to save Rhino 7. I've noticed quite a few users, maybe it's the first software or one of the first softwares. I don't know. I can't really quite figure it out. But they're surprised when Rhino 7 can't open a Rhino 8 model. But I mean, this goes all the way back to AutoCAD for me, where AutoCAD 14 wouldn't open an AutoCAD 13 model. So I'm used to that. You might be as well. But just a reminder that an earlier Rhino cannot open a later Rhino's model. And it has to do with stuff in the model that doesn't know about. So it's not that we're trying to, be, jerks or, not let you open the model. It's just the older version has no idea what has happened in the new Rhino file format. Okay, you do have some homework. So let me show you it. It's called surfaces.3dm, and it came down with the file set. What I want you to do in this file is study each one of these surfaces. So have help open. And when it says take EdgeSurf, you can type it in. And when you type it in, then it will bring up over here where to find it. It'll show you how to use it, and you can create that specific surface and then maybe look at some of the options to that surface. This is one that we're going to use called Extrude Straight. It's up under Solid, Extrude Planar Curve Straight. You can type in a number that you want to extrude it. There's another extrude called Extrude Along Curve. There's also Sweep, and they are a little bit different. I've got auto CPlane going here, I can see. So I'll turn it off for now, but we'll come back to it. I can select both of those and copy. And let's take a look at Extrude Along Curve. Select Curves to Extrude. Pick Path. I'll pick this path. Okay, so that's Extrude Along Curve. Let's take a look at Sweep. So if I go to Sweep, we're on one rail. Pick the curve. Shapes. Oh, here we go. I got to follow along here. Pick the rail. Pick the curves to sweep. And Sweep does have options. We're using freeform twisting here, so you can see the difference between those two commands. Now, none of these are solids yet, but you can very quickly turn them into a solid with cap planar holes, it's the cap command if you're going to type it in. Okay, so that's homework just to get some exposure to some surfaces that we're not going to be doing. Let's start the project for today. So I'm going to pick open, notice save changes, and let's open up, start here, 1,200 square foot townhouse. Okay, so I open it up and I want to bring you over to layers, and you can see, like I mentioned in the introduction, we have a lot of layers and we're going to be putting those to use. And there's a few things that are in here just for the sake of time, but just having the layer set that I'm familiar with to reference will make modeling much quicker. Notice the materials are already assigned. And if I was using some specific color to print with, different print color than object color, that would be really helpful too. Now, if you want some inspiration here, you can turn on images and you can see some of the images of the file that we're going to be creating. And they're kind of in the same place as the model is going to be. I'm not going to need to reference it, I don't think. But anyway, that's just there for inspiration. Okay, let's start. So this is a 1,200 square foot townhouse, and the floor plate is 20 feet by 20 feet squared. So let's go ahead and start with those curves first. I'm on the exterior wall layer and I'm on a sub layer called curves. Now you can take any layer and you can drag it so it becomes a sub layer of another layer. You can also drag it back, or you can use move to bring it out. Now, one of the really great features of Rhino Aide is the ability to sort through layers. So if you're looking for a wall layer, you can sort and bring all the wall layers together. Blocks also have that option on the block panel. So that can be a huge time saver as you're looking for layers, especially you can see at the resolution that I'm running at, my layers are actually scrolled. So let's go ahead and make that first curve. So I'm going to go to a rectangle. And it is going to be just a curve, so I'm going to start it at 0, my shortcut for 0, 0. And the first length is 20 feet, and then the width is also 20 feet. And I will enter. Great. Now, when I use Auto CPlane, sometimes it does this. Notice how the viewports, the construction planes aren't lining up. This is a really good time to do 4-view. And when I do 4-view, it lines all the construction planes up again, synchronizes them. And that's a really good place to start. Okay, this is where my offset command comes in. And let's go ahead and offset this. And I'm going to offset it in 6 units. So type in 6 and enter, and we'll have another closed curve for the interior wall. This is a 30-foot high townhouse. So I haven't done much development with the interior floor plan. In real life, I would have that already set, but I have an idea kind of the flow that I want in the townhouse. So we're going to put to use Auto CPlane and sub-object select as we're creating the exterior walls. So I'm going to go ahead and make the exterior wall layer current, and we'll extrude this. Now I could just drag it up at any height, but I'm going to use extrude straight. You can find that under solid, extrude planar curve straight. Okay, the distance that we want to go here is 30 feet. So I'm going to type that in and then enter. And then I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see everything. So that's a pretty good start. And I'm always tempted to sub-object select, grab the edge, and just move it down or type in a number. Okay, so I'm going to type in, I want it to go down -5 feet. And if I type in the wrong number, really, I'll just undo and do it again. So let me, there's one thing I do want to do. I'm going to hide these. Great. I want to keep this image here so we have something to look at. So we're modeling the left side of the townhouse. So you can see it slopes to center drainage, and then we'll have the other side of the townhouse. So in theory, that looks pretty good, but I don't like it. And what I don't like about it is the organization of the ISO curves. And that's why I'm going to choose a different method for doing this. This ISO curve over here on this surface shows that there is a little bit of a skew here to the ISO curves. And if I were going to orient something on that surface down the line, it might make a difference, or building off of it might make a difference. So again, I'm being a little picky here, so I'm not going to use that method, even though it is possible, totally an option for you. I just undid everything I did with my images. So I'm going to grab both of those again. And instead of just hiding them, I'm going to put them in bucket A. Then I can always bring them back. And then I'll bring our inspirational image over here so we can kind of see it in the background and use it for, like I said, inspiration. Okay, what I want to do is I want to trim. And there's a couple ways that I can trim and cap. I can wire cut, or I can split, or I can difference. So a couple options here. And just to show you that there's not just one way to model, there's a bunch of different ways, but when I'm modeling, I kind of come up with the way I like best, and this was the way that I liked best this time. So I'm going to go to curve line, plus I get to show you a new command, one of my favorites, called curve from 4 points. Now, why would you want 4 points? Well, because I want to start there, but I want the curve to extend out beyond the edges. And this is a technique called over modeling, and we're going to use it quite a bit in this exercise. So this curve I want to use to create the surface that I'm going to difference from the block of wall there. Okay, so this brings up a point of technical modeling, and this is where I select the curve and I go up to rotate, and I want to rotate that using the technical model and technical approach. And I want to use the endpoint here, the intersection of that, or it's actually the end of the wall, the intersection of that curve. I want to use that as the center of the rotation, and I'm going to type in -14. And let's go ahead and enter to accept that. And that is the slice that I want to make through that geometry. And the difference will be subtle, but I hope that you will appreciate it. I'm going to extrude that out. And now I want to difference this from the exterior wall. And for fun, I'll put this, it's easier to see if I throw this on the roof layer. So you might be saying, well, I didn't know I could difference with an open surface. You can. It can be a little bit challenging at times, but it's always good to just jump in and try it. and then we'll figure it out if it doesn't work. So I'm going to go to, and it's always a learning opportunity. So I'm going to go to difference, and the positive is the cube or rectangular cube. I'm going to pick the surfaces to subtract with, and when I do, it differences out that geometry. Okay, and now look at my IsoCrv structure down here. It's perfect, so it's going to be easy to build off of. Now, what if it didn't work? Well, there's a command that's really helpful, and it's called Boolean toObjects. And if I pick on this one and this one, it goes through and shows me an iteration through all the different options. And who knows, maybe you want that one. Maybe you're making a box. I don't know. But anyway, this is the one that I'm looking for. So as soon as I get there, I enter and it completes the Boolean. Okay, great. I'm happy with that. I'm happy. A little bit picky, I know, probably for getting started, but I want to keep you thinking about these things and how the topology of the geometry is going to affect you downstream. You don't have to worry about it too much, I mean, but it is good to be aware of it. Now, what I want to do here is use one of the commands called duplicate face border. And typically I find that under curve from objects, and it's called duplicate border. But we have it here conveniently already on our push-pull toolbar. So I'm going to duplicate face border, and I don't have auto CPlane on, but let's go ahead and do that. And when I do, it brings me up to that level. And that's really good because I now want to offset this curve. And I don't want to offset it on the construction plane. Or the top construction plane. I want to offset it on the construction plane of the roof. So let me make the roof layer current, and let's go ahead and offset. You'll find that on the offset on the curve menu as well. I'm going to type in 36. I want a big overhang here, 3-foot overhang, and now I have the curve to make the surface out of. And I will use surface from PlanarSrf, surface from PlanarSrf. I can get it from there as well. But we put it up here because we, in this exercise, we're going to be using it a lot. So I want to make it easy to get to. Now, that's pretty good, but it's not exactly what I want. I want to split out so that it ends right at the edge of the wall. And let's go back to the standard toolbar and down to split. And now that you know about IsoCrvs, we're going to use them to split. And I can do that by right-clicking on split or by picking IsoCrv. And I want to pick the surface to split, and the IsoCrv is either in the U or the V direction. That's how we describe surfaces, U and V, and you'll get used to that. And if I don't want the U, I can toggle to the V. So we don't know just by looking at the surface, but we can find out with a number of commands like this. It's really just test drive it. Find out the one you want, toggle it to the one you do want, pick on the endpoint, and now you have a split surface. So I'm going to get rid of that, get rid of that. Now that's about what I'm looking for. There is a layer in this model called Sight, and if you want to turn that on, it will give you a way to get back to the top construction plane. So it's really helpful. I do want to extrude this surface, and it comes back, and that's okay. I could turn it off for a little bit. I don't think it's going to affect the next command, but it may affect just visually when you're looking at the model. So up under solid, extrude surface straight. Okay, we're going to extrude it up 18 inches, 1.5 feet, and I don't want to extrude it perpendicular to the surface. So I'm going to go here to direction, and I'm going to pick in the world Z direction. Okay, so you can see the difference there in the style of roof that it's creating. And I'm going to type in 18 inches. Unless I put the foot mark, the base unit is inches. So all I need is 18 and then enter. And when I typed it in, it looks like it went below instead of above. Okay, I don't really have to do it again, but I'll go ahead and do that. Extrude surface straight. Okay, and I'll do direction. It's always nice to see this one a couple times. I'll keep my cursor there. I'll type in 18, okay, and then enter. Now, to me, that looked like it did something bigger than 18, but let's test it out. Analyze distance from here to here. And my distance is coming back in feet. So let's take distance again. And I want to get information back in decimal inches. So I'll pick here and here. Yeah, that went way farther than I want it to go. So let's do this. I'm going to go back to the top construction plane, and I'm going to turn off auto CPlane just in case it's not getting along with this command, and extrude. And I want to solid extrude surface straight. So I'll pick on that surface and direction. I've got the direction set. I want to type in 18 and then enter. Okay, that worked better. I think what I really did was after I picked the direction, I assumed it was 18 and it wasn't. So I think it was actually my own fault there. Okay, so there we have the roof and we have the wall. And at this point, if you want to, you can put your viewport in rendered mode. But I think I'm going to wait just a little bit. So the display modes are on the viewport, and you can do that by picking the down arrow. I'm going to keep the other viewports in wireframe. Okay, so the process here is we'll create the opening curve, and then we will push-pull, and then we'll create the trim. So we're going to do that a number of times, but let's start with the door opening. So I have a layer called wall openings, and it has some openings on it, but I don't really want to use them. I want to make them with you. So let me delete these two, and let's create those ourselves. And I'll make the wall opening layer current, and then we'll put the other ones to use here in just a little bit. When you're starting out with Rhino, Smart Track is an option. I don't think it works 100% or easily when it comes to smart tracking from surfaces. So just to simplify things, I'm going to create the rectangle that's the door, and I'm going to create it from the corner, and then we're going to move it with Gumball, and it's a really efficient way to go. So I'm going to pick a rectangle and pick in this corner. And the length that I want to use is 36. Now look what happens when I type in 36. It goes to the positive 36. So I need to type in minus 36. So I go in the negative 36 direction and then enter. And I want this door to be 7 foot high. It's a real high structure, so I want to go with a custom door here, 7'5", so it's more, or 7 foot, so it's more proportional. So I'm going to type in 7 foot. And as soon as I type that in, I'll enter. And the door is right at the corner, which isn't where I want it to be. So I'm going to pick it, and I'm going to move it over a negative or minus 24. And it'll be good there for now. Let's do the other opening, which is I'm doing it as a sliding glass door, but it might end up being turned into just a window. But anyway, let's do a sliding glass door. So this is 60 inches, and as the height, and the width is 80. I'm going to go a little bit shorter than the door because I'm going to have some trim. Okay, so now I want to not bump that. I want to actually move it 24. So I'll type in 24. Beautiful. And both of these I want to move up 1 unit. And maybe the window, because of the trim, I want to move up another 0.5. Okay, but being kind of picky there, but I think that I think that'll work out good for us. Now I have the opening, but now I need the door and the window. So let's start with the door. I'll make the door layer current. And if you want, there's a door already there. I'm going to delete it and make my own. But I am going to use the hardware. So if you want, you could turn off the hardware layer. We'll turn it back on here in a moment. And I need to offset the curve, the opening curve, or am I going to use it as the door curve? I haven't quite decided yet. Maybe I'll use that as the door curve, and I'll offset it 1 unit on the inside. So I always want the opening to be smaller than the trim or the door. So that's, and I want to put this on the door layer. No, it is on the door layer. I want to put this on the opening layer. There we go. And I'll put this on the door layer. Not that it matters that much. Okay, but I think it's good to see the organization. So I want to offset the door, and I want to offset it 8 units on the inside. So now we have a window, we have the door. We're going to use this curve to set the glass. We can actually make it a little bit smaller. Maybe we want to make another layer for the glass here and just offset that 1 unit. And I do have a glass layer, but that's where the surfaces are going to go. Okay, I think we have everything we need here for the door. And what I like to do is I'm going to put this on. I'm going to hide this just for a moment. Okay, what else do we want to hide? Well, I could hide these things, or I could put them on a layer, but I need just that opening, and you'll see why here. Well, let me show you why. If I do push-pull with those curves, then it's going to push-pull to them, and I don't want to do that. I want to push-pull and end up with the entire opening. Now, you may be able to figure out a workflow where you push-pull the door and then go ahead and push-pull the opening, but I find it easier to kind of divide the tasks and do the openings and then do the trims. So I'm going to drag this back, and those are the actually I could do this region at the same time. There we go. And let's go ahead and push it back. Great. Okay, now I'm noticing one thing I haven't done, which is okay. We'll do that right now. Let's turn off the roof layer. I haven't differenced out the interior wall. So let's do that before we start doing our push-pull. And the way I do that is to copy this curve. It's very fast, I assure you. So I'm going to take this curve and I'm going to extrude it using the sphere up. Okay, and just like we did the difference of the surface, we want to difference out that entire chunk. So let's go to Solid Tools and Difference. Not Surface Tools, Solid Tools. There we go. Let's go to Difference, pick the positive, enter, pick the negative. Beautiful. Okay, we got that. We can bring our roof back unless for some reason we want to keep it off so we could see the inside. I don't need this curve anymore, and we are ready to push pull. So let's push pull now, these two openings, and enter, and then pull them back. So push pull, multi-stage command, pick the regions, enter, and then pick the depth. And the depth here is irrelevant, right? Because we already have the offset of the interior wall, or so I just need to break through it and know that we're through the wall. Okay, awesome. So now let's work on our door just a little bit. I want to bring back the curves. Oops, not that. So let me undo that. There's another option here to bring back objects you've turned off called Show Selected. And that way I can grab this curve and this curve and even this curve if I have it. Yeah. Okay. I've got those images in the back. They're a little overpowering. I should probably make them more transparent. Okay, let's make the door. And if you wanted to, sometimes I like to make the glass first. So I'm going to tuck it back, and I'll make the surface from planar curves. And instead of changing my current layer, I'm going to just make it and then throw it on the glass layer. Okay, so that part is good. Now, and I just noticed something. Let me undo that. This is the glass. Okay, good. Good. We're all on the same page here. Okay, so that's the glass. This is the surface, and we're going to put it on the glass layer. Okay, the inside, we're going to create a solid out of them. They are planar. They do have an opening. So in theory, I can extrude those at one time. So solid, extrude, planar, curved, straight. And I could have just grabbed it from up there. It is coming out solid. I can tell by the shading. So that is good. And I want to extrude it 8 units. And after I extrude, oh, not the door. I was thinking of trim here. So what do we want to do? We want to extrude it 1.5 or 2 or 1 3/4, whatever you like there. Okay, so I'll enter to accept that, and we now have the door. And I like the door to bump out. And if you want to be exact, you can type in like -1, or you can just move it so that it's visible. And we're going to turn on the hardware, and we'll grab the hardware, which is brass. We're going to drag it over to the door. And let's turn on rendering so we can see how we're doing here. Great. So we've got the door, we've got the hardware, and now we need to work on the window. And the window I like to create on white trim. So I'm going to make the white trim layer current. And similar to what we did before, we'll probably account for the glass and then do the trim. So let's go ahead and offset. And I'm going to offset this curve 1.5 if you want 3-inch trim, or if you want 4-inch trim, you can do 2, but we are going to do both sides. Okay, so that might give you an idea. 1.5, or if you want 4-inch trim, let's do 2, and that looks a little thick to me because it is a sliding glass door. So I'm going to go with 1.5, and we're going to do both of those at the same time. Okay, and we can create a rectangle from this midpoint, and the rectangle is going to be, what did we do? 4, but I probably only want 2 here, and then I'm going to bring it down. Okay, so that's another closed curve. let's extrude that into our trim. And if I pick on all of them at the same time, I can bump them out so that I don't have to bump them out later. I'll set them by 1 inch out, and then solid, extrude planar curve, straight. And we're going to, it is on the white trim layer. Let's put in 8. That looks good, and we'll pick it. And the only one that needs to be closed up here is this mullion. So we'll pick the extrusion, and let's do solid cap planar holes. And if this doesn't cap them, then I'm going to do that separate. Now I think what happened, let's go ahead and undo that. Okay, so let's do the first extrude, this one here, and we'll do extrude straight, just like we did before, and 8. Okay, and then let's take this one and we'll do that one separate because I want it to be solid as well. Now, this one, you may not want to be quite as thick, and this is where the gumball will come in, and we could put it right in the middle of the window so it offsets a little bit, and that looks good. By going through all this trouble, you probably, if you had another one of these, you would want to block this together, and that way you could insert that block and have it already done. After pushing through your opening, you would be ready to insert the block. To create a block, it's right here, define block, pick the base point, and what I like to pick is the base point. I may not be able to get to in this display mode, but I like to pick the inside of the wall. So that's really important when I'm placing this block. It's right here, so I'm going to go ahead and go with that, but I'd rather put it in wireframe. And this is a sliding glass. I always put the size in here, and it is 60 by 84 plus 3 inch. It's got 3 inch trim on it, so I don't know, something like that. Just so you know the idea when you're trying to pick your block. I could also link it to a manufacturer. So if I was going to use, Milgard or another door manufacturer, Simpson, I can put in the link to the manufacturer. Okay, great. So we did a lot here. We got a block. We can use it again. All we have to do is pop open the opening and then insert the block. So if I took this wall opening and I put this in on the white trim layer, which I may want to bump up to the window layer. I don't know, it's kind of halfway between a window and a door, so maybe it needs its own layer. But if we grab that opening and copy it, and we can just pop in another one. So I'm going to draw the opening again. I just created a new curve, and I'll bring it over here just to show you what I mean by pop in a block, because that may not make a whole lot of sense. I'm going to pick here, okay, and so I created another opening, and I want to insert another. Now insert is now going to inset, so you have to type in a little more, do your own alias shortcut. So I want to insert this glass window, and if I do it right, there we go. Okay. Now I might have got the insertion point a little bit off, because when it came in, the point that I snapped to wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. It's very, very close, but if you spend some time getting your blocks right, then you're going to be able to very quickly pop them in. There we go. Okay, well we'll keep that. That's part of our new design. Let's take a look at the next push-pull, and this is actually a pull. So we're going to go up here to pull. We're going to pick on this rectangle, and it's on make sure wall openings is on. So you need that layer on in order to do this. So let's go to push pull, pick on the opening, enter, and then as you pull it out, type in 24, which is 2 feet, and then enter. And this was one of my reasons why I did this getting started, was all the push-pull tutorials that I've seen so far don't use real-world dimensions, and we are using, those here. So now that we have that pull out, let's take a look at doing it on the other side of the wall. And there's a technique that I use all the time, very efficient, where I mirror at a 45-degree angle. Okay, when I do that, I have the other side. This, I'm trying to decide whether I need it. I'm not sure if I do, but I'll hide it and then I can come back to it. This one, on the other hand, I have to make one change to it, and that is I'll do a window around the control points. I need to stretch it out, and I only want to stretch it out here in this direction. I like using move here because I want to move those control points from here to here. Okay, so I want to be exact. I just don't want to hope that I'm on that edge. So what do? Push pull, pick on the planar opening and enter it. Remember 24 from the last time. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hide that. Don't know if I need it again, but there we are. We have our opening and we're ready to start developing the windows in that area. So first on the list here will be the inset face. When I pick inset face, it gives me the option to split or no. Right now I'm saying no, not to split, so I'm just creating the curve, and I'll type in 24, and I think that's okay. I'm going to bump it over about 2 inches, and that will be at least where we start. Okay, so here's the curve. Let's use the gumball, and we want to go over about 2 inches, and let's divide this up. And I haven't needed auto CPlane. I have it off for now. When I need it, I'll type it in, but I do want to explode that. I'm probably going to need it here shortly because I want to offset that curve. And at this point, I'm not even sure where my construction plane is, but if I go to offset and pick on this curve, see how I'm not offsetting on that plane? Okay, welcome to Rhino 7. So let's go to Rhino 8, and when we pick on this surface, then it will set our construction plane. And if you go back to shaded, it'll show you that. So maybe we'll stay in shaded here for a little bit. Now take a look at offset. When I pick that, I want to offset it 24. I want to offset here 24. And then because I need a mullion, I want to offset this 6, and then I want to offset this 6. Okay, I don't need one around the outside because this I'm pushing all the way through the wall. Okay, so I will be using these curves again, and I may want to join these back together again because I can put that curve to use for the glass. Okay, so I may want to offset this curve just an inch so we have something for the glass. So if I can keep track of these curves, I'll go ahead and share them with the other side. Now, a good place to select the curves is in the front view. So I get all of them. And then remember how I shared them with the other side, I mirrored them. So we'll do that again. Mirror from here. Want to make sure I get right in the corner because I want these curves to be on that surface. If they're not, I'm going to have to move them or project them because the push-pull won't work. Okay, so I'm going to grab this curve, and if you look here, I'll probably put it halfway between the wall, and that will be our glass. Okay, and so I'll get to that a little bit later here. We'll make the actual surface here shortly, but I'll pick the outside curve here. And again, if I want to type in 12, I could do that to be exact. Rhino's happy to be as exact as I want to be. Okay, time for some push-pull. So let's do push-pull here, 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 and here. So if my O-snaps don't get in the way, I can do all of these at one time. You can hold down the Alt key so that your O-snaps don't pull you off of plane. Okay, that looks really good. Okay, and now let's do that over here again. Push-pull. Again, hold down the Alt key if those O-snaps are giving you problems, and that way we're just going to push it on the inside of the wall, and that looks really good. I'm very happy with that, and that I'm at least right now. Let's go back to the floor, and that's what I like about having this site layer on, and let's make it rendered. Great, so we can see what fabulous work we're doing here. Let's go ahead. Now these curves, we can select all the curves and put them away later, but I want to show you a way to get the materials here other than the layer. If I hold down Sub-Object Select and I pick on, and I want to try and get all of these, but I want to pick on these surfaces. I want to make them yellow, and I don't want them to be extracted. I don't want to put them on a different layer. I just want them to be yellow. And I could do that with Sub-Object Select, Properties. I can go to Material. And in this model, I already have a yellow material. It was just, I used gray siding and then made it yellow. That's how I created it, just the standard gray siding. And now we have that yellow material assigned to that little pop out there in our building. Sometimes the site does get in the way. So like I want to rotate this, but I keep seeing the site. So I'm going to rotate that up, and let's do one more. This surface here and this surface here, and we want to assign a wood material. So if we go to Properties, and we can pick one of the woods that is already in the file, like Cherry Dark, or you can get another one from the library. If you pick here on the plus, it'll bring you to the library, and you can pick from 2,000, over 2,000 materials that ship with Rhino. And this is just one that ships with Rhino called Cherry. Now, I may have an extra surface here. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Great. Okay, so we have some materials that are assigned by layer. We have some materials that are assigned by object, and we're doing well. We're doing well. We want to take care of the openings on the other side of the wall. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'll start by push-pull, and I can do all 4 of those. If I'm careful, I'll rotate it this way because, and hold the Alt key down because I want to go back into the center of the building. Okay, let's do the trim, and these these curves are actually going to be helpful for doing the glass. So if we wanted to do the glass now, we can make planar curves and then pick on those planar curves and put them on the glass layer. Maybe I should move that one up. And in the top view, I can pick here and put in -12. That would be the center of the wall. How about -6? I'm just going to bring them in. Okay. And that wall is only 6, so I'm off here by a factor 2. Okay. And +3. I think I almost got it. Okay, great. Let's take a look at where things are slowing down just a little bit. Let's take a look at what we have going on with the windows in this view, and then we'll do the other trim. And one quick way to make a window that I like to do is to use the midpoint O snap and extrude a curve. But it looks like we already have a curve here. If we go to wireframe, you can see a curve here. I think we painstakingly did that. So let's use those curves and we'll make a surface, and then we'll put that surface on the glass layer. And again, my favorite way, a little bit more work when you have long layers, but I should be able now to go back to rendered and see the glass material. Okay, I have not saved, so I'm going to save as and call this class work, class model. How about that? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and save that so we have that in case of a catastrophe. So let's work on the what I believe is the south side here, and we need to create our trim, and we can again create one. This might have been a little bit extra work if we do it as a block, so I'll take the glass out. The opening is fine. Let's go ahead and create the trim. We'll make it a block and then copy it all over the place. So I like the window trim layer to be current, and we're going to offset this curve, and I'm going to offset it 2, and let's do both sides. And that will be the window trim. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go with that. And then I'll pick both of those curves. And let's go back. So we're not only making a model here, we're developing blocks that we can use in other models. So I want to bump that out 1. Okay, and now that I have those curves, let's extrude them. So solid, extrude planar, curve straight, and we'll put in 8, just like we did the other windows, and let's pick on that -1. Okay, so we have our window. I don't know, I think we have enough mullions here. Let's go ahead and keep this window hold. It might even be a fixed window. So we have the glass and we have the trim. Okay, let's go ahead and make a block. So we'll go to block, and the insertion point will be on the inside of the wall. And this is where the last time I promised I'd do a better job by going into a wireframe. And let's just, so that's the, okay, so that's the inside of the wall. Okay, I have it now. Let's select the objects for a block and block. It might be nice to set a point would be another good idea. And we'll call this fixed 6 foot by 2 foot. Okay, how big this window is. Okay, now we can insert it or copy it into the other locations. Either one works. So instead of inserting, all I have to do is grab it and copy it, and then I can take both of these and then copy them up to the other elevation. I want to emphasize a little bit about what you're getting out of using a block, and we've got a couple of them in use in this model. Let me just make sure we're in the opening. We might want to check this in rendered mode. Okay, yeah, things look pretty good. So one of the advantages you get out of doing this is that you can edit one block and they're all going to update. So if I pick this block, let's say I change my mind again and decided that this block is going to have a mullion. Okay, so I can double click on it and go into edit mode, and I can come up with a mullion in the center or one of the windows. So auto CPlane is on. I'm going to pick here. Okay, so that should be the CPlane. Let's test it out. So if I go here to draw, am I drawing on that CPlane? It looks like I am. I can see the rectangle here as well. So let's bring that down. And let's just fit it to the window. So I'm going to bring that down to the middle. I'll fit it to the window, and I can bring it to the middle of the window, scale it, and now I'll turn that into a solid. So extrude planar curve straight, and let's extrude it here. Okay, so that's now in our block. So what I want you to do is watch what happens when I pick OK. There, see how they all updated? Okay, so that's the power of using a block. And also, if you open up your block panel, you can see, this is another way. I was going kind of the old-fashioned way of inserting, but this is also where you can get a count of how many blocks you have. So quite a bit of coolness from using a block. And I can pick this block and delete it and see how the count goes down. Now I only have one. And there's another really good command that I want to point out here under solid tools, and it's called wire cut, of course, but it's called delete hole. And I can take out that opening, and now we only have one door. Okay, so it's fun to, that command is fantastic. Take out that opening. And now let's work on the final opening here. And I'm going to be able to use another command up here, which is SplitFace. So let's take a look at what that means. So if I pick Inset here, see how it picks the entire face? I don't want that. I want just the upper portion. So I'm going to split the face. And this is where having good isocurve structure comes in, because I can split with isocurves and I can toggle them if I want to split the other direction. Okay, so I can split here and then I can toggle the direction and I can split here. Okay, so if I go now to inset and I pick here, you can see I'm just insetting from that face. Okay, and if we inset 24, we'll be about on line with the window below. I think here I actually like insetting 18 to be a little bit bigger. Okay, and it lines up with the roof slope, which is excellent. It's now a perfect window. So let's go ahead and push pull. We'll pick here. That's something blinked and I don't trust it. Okay, push or pull. We're going to push. Okay, great. And now we have to do our offsets here. One of the options you also have when you're modeling is to move an edge, but if you pick right, you can get on the face and you can move the face. So if I wanted to move that up 12, then the window would be, you know, a little bit smaller in that area. Okay, might be good. Okay, so let's go ahead and duplicate edge. Okay, now I've got a couple edges I don't need. There, we'll get rid of that. Okay, let's work on the trim. This gets a little bit trickier, maybe because we've been working for so long. It seems like if I'm going to mess up, this is going to be it. This curve, let's offset. And we're going to offset it too, so we have a trim on both sides of 4. And let's make sure 2 is there. There we go. That looks a little better. Okay, so both sides of 4. And we're good. We may also want to do a mullion here. And what we can do is also offset this. And I like to kind of take a look at where it's lining up with the windows below before we go ahead and decide on that location. I might want to drag it over to here so it lines up with the window below. And I can move them, you know, extremely accurately. I can move from here and then I can pick on the mullion below and using Smart Track. I can also create guidelines. So there we made sure we were lined up. And we also may want to create another opening. And let me offset that. And we have a command called Boolean, curve Boolean, that can work good in a lot of these cleanup cases. If I pick this curve, I think just the trim command is super efficient here. I can trim out the excess. The other curves are okay. If I pick these as the cutting edges and then enter, I just pick what I want to go away, and I can even pick here if I want to work them all together. And I should be able to join now all of these together into a closed curve. Now this one isn't included. Let's go ahead and join. And what do we have? It says we have 2 open curves. And part of the problem you could see up here is that when I lined up, this is really good to see, when I was really picky and lined up those curves, they're now out of plane, so they won't join. But they were good enough to trim with. So let me just go ahead and get rid of those, and let's draw a curve from endpoint to endpoint. Okay, so we'll just bring it down here and down here. And then this one, we can grab the control points and we can move them over. A little bit of surgery here, and we'll have our curves back. Now I can join these two. Hopefully they're close enough. Good. And then when I turn on the control points, I no longer need those control points, so I can delete them. Okay, so that's good. Do I have a closed curve? Let's ask Rhino. Okay, it is closed. That's good. Let's work on this one down here. Is that closed? No. Let's go to trim. Pick on this to remove. Okay, now let's see if we can just make sure that these are all going to join. Yeah. Okay, so we have a closed curve there. We have a closed curve there, and now we're ready to, and those of course are closed. Now we're ready to do our trim. And I just want to get the outside one, but I have that gumball in the way. We're just about ready to mirror. I'm going to move that out one. Okay, and then let's extrude solid, extrude planar curve straight. And it looks solid, which is a really good thing to see. I need to bump this back out. Whatever I did to the curve didn't stick. I think that's the second time that's happened, but that's okay. I'll just bump it out by 1 unit. So we have our upper window. Okay, so what about the window? Is it a window yet? Let's go ahead and select it. I think it is because I can see the ceiling. So all of that is looking good. So now we can move on to some of the more fun things. Sometimes if you save your model and reopen it, we've done a lot of work here. So I'm just trying to, it feels a little sluggish to me. Again, we have the broadcast tools, but that did help. Okay, so now we're going to do the other side of the townhouse. And I want to use sub-objects select, shift control, and I want the surface, not the edge. So let me give it another, there we go. Give it another try. Helps to be closer. There we go. Okay, up under solid, extrude surface straight. I want this to go out 18 inches. Click or enter. Great. And there we have the other side. We have the boundary or the border of the townhouse. And the next step here will be to mirror the geometry we have on the left to the right, and then we're going to have both sections. I mentioned that you could use mirror if you wanted to mirror with history. So if you moved one, but we actually are going to make the right side, it's going to be non-symmetrical. So I'm not going to do that, but I am going to mirror, pick here, and pick here. Okay, so now we have both sides. This side does something a little bit different. And let's go into shaded mode. And shaded is really helpful to show us the auto CPlane. I want to extend the upper facade here. I want to extend it down, and that way giving it a little more of a unique feel than just being totally symmetrical. So what I want to do is split. So we'll do split face. We'll pick here, and I want to split with IsoCrv, and I want to pick. I can move this, but I want to be about 6 inches here away from, or maybe 4 inches away from the door, but we'll be able to look and see if it's what we want to do. And I'm going to take this entire side before we go ahead and do the extrude. I want to move that over 4 units. Okay, so I want to give maybe even another 2. I want to give the door a little bit of room. Okay. Let's pick here, and up under solid, I could extrude surface. I can also just grab it and extrude it down. Now, I don't have my top view. I can change it. I just want to make sure it's under the concrete pad out there. So let's see what we ended up with. If I go back to rendered mode, I have it. I just need to put it now that actually made it part of the solid above, but I want it to be, I think I want it to be independent. Solid, extrude, surface, straight. And let's see if we have a separate surface. We don't. So let's go ahead and copy it. Control C, Control V. Now solid, extrude, surface, straight. Okay, good. And we can pick a point. And now I want this to go on the doors layer. Okay, just because it actually doesn't have the yellow material that I'm looking for. So let me take a look at my layers and see if that yellow siding, it looks like I'm using it on the screen layer, but I can override the material of the layer and give it the yellow. I want the yellow siding, which is right. This is it right here. There we go. Yeah, I wanted the bump map in there with a little bit of impression of the siding. Okay, so we want to make it just a little bit different so whoever that is who purchases this unit won't have the exact same as the one next door. So just a little bit of personality here. You can go to layer and you can turn on the floors. So we've got floor slabs. Now, one thing I didn't do is mirror them for you. So let's go right click on floor slabs, select objects, and then mirror, and let's mirror them. Oh, it left the building there. Let's do select objects. Okay, I've got them selected. Now let's do mirror. Yeah, that worked. Okay, and then I want to go from the middle here and then over. Okay, so now we have floors on each side. I also want to bump this out nearly to the overhang. So I'm going to sub-object select and I'll bring them over. I like to use this view here to bring them just inset a couple inches from the overhang. And that also gives them a little bit of privacy there going in the doors, but we also have a privacy screen to look at. And if you go to the roof layer, there is an overhang, and the overhang I play around with the height where I want it. Sometimes I like it like in the middle of that area of that yellow pop out. And sometimes I like it just at the bottom of the yellow pop out and over the door. I don't know where we're going to leave it this time. I think I liked it back where it was. Okay. So if you want to make sure you have some slope on your overhang, you can sub-object select, and then in the right view, you can move this down like -5. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to do that much. I want to do minus 0.5. So let's pick that. And got to be right in the middle of that or you get the edge. Okay, let's do minus 0.5. There. Now we've got a little bit of slope there to that. Probably not enough for this area. So that's one other feature that we have to our townhouse. The last feature, well, there's the site. And then we also have concrete sidewalk you can turn on. And we'll get rid of all the curves here in a moment. You can do that with a command called CellCrv, and you can type it in, SELCUR. Oh, it's snowing here. CRV. There we go, CellCrv. So now all of these curves that you have, you can just hide them. And you can hide them by putting it in a bucket. So I'll put it in bucket 2. It's actually the B bucket there. If I need to bring it back, I can get back to them. But most of the time, I can extract them off of objects. Last thing we want to do is turn on our privacy screens. And there we have the frame. And I'm going to turn on a couple options here for you. One is a Voronoi screen. And I want to show you the definition for that and just get you, hopefully inspired by Grasshopper. That's all my intention is here. You may already know Grasshopper, and sometimes it's fun to have these easy examples to show people that you're talking to so they understand what visual programming is. I also have just a rectangular privacy screen. Okay, now take a look at your layouts. We need to do a clipping plane here. Find the clipping plane. There might be one already in here, but you can see that our layouts are now showing the model that we developed there in the perspective view. Last thing, let's talk about the screens. So I'm going to turn off both the screens that we have and make a new sub layer. And I'm going to work with the screens layer. And we have one screen here. So I wanted to make a sub layer, and I'll call it, actually changed my mind. I want to bump that one out, and I want to make this screen layer a sub layer. Okay. And if I turn that off, you can see the curve is still there and the curve is on the screen layer. Okay, so what I want to do with this is select objects. Good. And I can hide them. That's fine. Okay, and let's turn this back to shaded. Great. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a they're all available. I can very quickly get to a curve if I'd rather have a curve by duplicating edge. But let's take a look at the Grasshopper feature. And Grasshopper is visual programming. And what we want to do is some type of computation with either the curve or the surface. And at this point, I could use either, but I need to bring that. If this is where I'm going to create the screen, I need to bring it into Grasshopper so I can work on it. Then I'll show you the one that's already done, which is probably going to be more sophisticated. So I'll pick curve and I'll bring this curve into Grasshopper. So I'll set that curve. Okay. Now that I have this curve in Grasshopper, I can do some things with it that we've done with Rhino. I can go to surface from PlanarSrf and I can make a surface out of that curve. So this one I'll go ahead and hide because I probably don't need right now. Okay, so I have a curve and I have a surface, and now I get to do something with those. I chose to create under mesh. There's a Voronoi command here, Voronoi. So I'm going to use that, but in order to use that, I need a random set of points. So if you pull this down, you can pull it onto the canvas. Notice it needs points. You could also double click here and type it in. And if you spell it right, you're going to get the option. So that's really important when you're using Grasshopper, is that you can double click on the canvas and type in anything. That's probably the most important thing. The second most important is that you can hold down Shift and Control. You can hold down Control and Alt and trace your way back to where the battery is. And I'm also using something, it's a plugin. If I go to special folders, it's called Sunglasses. It used to be called Bifocals. Anyway, it's allowing me to drop these components, parameters, all work, but it's allowing me to drop them and give the name. So if you double click here and type in curve, then you can see all of the parameters and components that include curve in the name. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a random set of points. And I'm going to go to vector. I'm not going to go to math yet, but go to vector and grab populate 2D points. Okay, and when you grab that populate 2D points, you can plug in a region and a number of points that you want, which is going to be really important because that's going to control the density of the Voronoi pattern. So let's go here and we're going to drag curve into region. And when we do, you can see a set of points that are being previewed over here. Now the count is coming from this input, and you can right click on it and provide an integer, but I'm going to give you a better way to do that because you can change your mind. And I'm going to double click here. And when I double click, I'm going to type in, there's a couple ways to do this. This is the way I do it. 50 less than 200. Okay. So when I do that, it creates an enter. Make sure you enter 50 less than 200, enter. Okay. That's a slider bar. And I can plug in that slider bar to provide the number of points. Okay. So see how they keep getting more dense as I drag it. I believe that 5 dot dot, let's say 250, that works too. Somebody added that dot dot. So you can do that either way. And when I plug that one in, you can see that it unplugs. And these are just integers, but they can certainly be real numbers. Okay, so I'm going to create a seed, which is actually, I call it a shake because it shakes it up and gives a more random look as you drag the bar. I'm going to go 1 through 10. And I'm going to plug that one into seed. And now you can see it shaken up over here. Okay, so that's going to give me some randomness if I have multiple. And see how fun that is? It's fun when it works, like anything else. Okay, now that I have those points, let's go ahead and put the points into the Voronoi. And when I do that, you can see that it shoots off in the preview, which isn't what I want. I want to restrict it to the boundary. So I'm going to grab this curve again and use it as the boundary. So I'm using it both to generate a surface, which will become part of the definition, and to create a boundary for the Voronoi. Okay, well, now let's look what we have. We have 97 curves. So what happens here if I shake this? Okay, I'll get something random out of here, and I'll get more points out of here. Okay, and then that changes the number of curves that we have. So let's go back to somewhere around 100, and I don't need to see these anymore. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to turn off this battery or component. So when I pick on it, I'll tap the wheel mouse and disable preview. And when I do that over here, you don't see those points anymore. So it makes it a little cleaner to look at. Eventually, we're going to do the same thing with the Voronoi curves because we don't need them, but we need them. We don't need to see them when we create other geometry out of them. So I need the inside, and to do that, I'm going to scale these down, just like I would in Rhino. So up under Transform and Scale, I'm going to grab the Scale component, and I'll put the cells in the geometry, but Rhino needs to know where the center is and what the scale factor is. So since it is a flat surface, I can get away with not being as picky as if it were a freeform surface. But I'm going to go down here to area. And area will give us the area of the cells, but it will also give us the centroid. And notice I have 106 centroids. I have 106 geometry. So I'm going to pass in those. Okay, so now we are scaling around each of those individual centers, which is really important if you're going to want to come up with a wall that you can extrude into a solid. Now, the factor is also important, and I'm going to put in 0.5 through 0.99. How about 98? There we go. Okay, so this is a slider that uses a real number. I'm going to go to Factor, and just like I did the other two, I'm going to disable the preview. Yes, I will post the session, everybody. If you have to leave, we're almost done. The Grasshopper definitions are in there, so you can open them up and you can go through them as well. Okay, have a great day. Thanks for working with me this morning. Okay, so those of you that are going to stick around, we're going to do more Grasshopper. So I'm going to scale this so we can come up with the wall opening. Now, for more privacy, you can make it bigger. For less privacy, you can make it thinner. But that's going to give us the geometry we need to make our closed planar curves, which in turn will make a surface out of, and then we'll extrude. So we're on the way to having this almost complete. Okay, so let's go ahead, and in order to create a planar curve, I need planar curves, just like I did in the other exercise. And if they are islands of each other, then I'm going to get a solid. And that's a really important part here. So I'm going to double click on the canvas and type in merge. And I'm going to merge the closed curves here with the original ones that we offset. So let's take a look at what happens here. When I take this geometry and plug it in, and then this geometry and plug it in. Okay, so now I have, let's see what's coming out of here. I have two sets of curves that I'm going to create surfaces from. But one thing, let's go ahead and plug it in, and let's see if we get what we want. I do need to flatten those curves. I look over here under surfaces. I have 100. Sometimes I do. I don't think I need to. I think I'm getting what I want here by just plugging in those two sets. So now I have the surfaces. They are trim surfaces. And I think we're on our way here to just extruding those into solids and baking them back. So let me go ahead and turn that display off. And let's go ahead and I'm going to extrude, which is also surface, and we've been using it all day inside a Rhino. What you could do if that's all you wanted to do here was just do the extrusion in Rhino. So that's also an option. But I'm going to plug in the surfaces, and I need a direction to extrude in. And what I'm going to use for the direction is I'm going to take the area, I'll copy it and plug in the overall surface. And when I do that, I have a point that I can use to give the direction with the amplitude component. So I'm going to go to amplitude, okay, and I'm going to plug in the vector, which is the centroid, and I'll plug this into direction. Okay, when I do that, you can see it's already a solid. It's a direction of 1, but what if I want to be more picky here? I can put in 0.5 through, let's say 3. Okay, so for my screen, let me plug that in. You can see. Now, what if I wanted to pick on here, edit the bar, and put in, instead of I'll put in -3 as my lower limit. And then I am a real number, so that's okay. So now look what happens. We can drag it in either direction. Okay, positive, negative. And this is ready to bake back to Rhino. So let's go ahead and type in bake. And there is a bake component. If you want something to see, we'll put that there. And we do have a screen, so we can also bake back the screen. I do have a screen somewhere. I do have a surface somewhere in my model. I can scoot that over so it's a little bit easier to see. And then I'll rearrange everything when we're done. So I'll plug that in here, but I need the shift key to hold them both down. And now I'm ready to bake. So this is bringing in a stream of information, so multiple components. How many to be exact? 106. This is bringing in 1. So with fancy wires, I get to see both. And I will bake this, and I want to put, this is why it's nice to have the layers set up. I don't always, but I do this time. I'll put it on the screen Grasshopper layer. Great. And there it is. So what I can do here is save this so I can use it later, and I'll just call it class so I know the difference. And if I can either close this or I can turn off its preview. That way I can see it out here in the model. And let me go ahead, and we might want to go into rendered mode. Beautiful. And I can take this and give it a translucent material. Maybe I just want to put it on the glass layer. Okay, so I can see through it a little bit. And it looks like my surface was a little bit crooked. So what were we using? Curve? This is really the fun part, is now I can rotate it around, but I've got ortho on, so let's turn that off. And let's just rotate it slightly. I should probably get another view in order to see it. I'm not sure which is the one that I was bringing into the Grasshopper drawing, or Grasshopper definition, but I should find that out. I can select objects, and I can put them, actually I can union them together so they are one screen. And these are the baked objects, so anything I do to them won't affect the Grasshopper definition. So my input curve has a little bit of a skew to it. But these guys, looks like I can just move them up here. Looks like they're cantilevering out. That's what it is. They are straight. It's just they're cantilevering out on that pad there that is at an angle. Okay, what else do we want to do with this last thing? If you want to pick a color for your screen, you can give it a material and then it will show up in the render color. Now this one, I thought I changed the name of it. It's actually yellow paint, but I must have changed it in one of my sessions, but not back in. Okay, great. Okay, so now we have our screen, and then we can work out any additional framing or detail that we want to do around that. If I turn off, let me select objects, and I'll put those on this screen. Okay, there's another, I gave you both these definitions. Let me close this one, and you can take a look at after the class, kind of the rectangular one, I think, which is really good if you're doing ceilings or paneling for any type of dividers. You can take a look at how that one comes together. I'm going to close this one, and let's open up one that's in our working folder here called rectangular panel. Great. Okay, so rectangular panel needs a curve, and this is what happens when you open up Grasshopper definitions from me or others, and you don't have the curve that's providing the input. So let's go back to the perspective view, and what do we have here? Yeah, we got a curve. So let's highlight the curve, and let's set this to the Grasshopper definition. Great. Okay, so when we do that, you can see in the preview here, we have number of columns and we have number of rows. Okay, and once you come up with the definition you want over here, you can change the scale of the inside one. You can make it bigger for more privacy or smaller for a more delicate look. And then the last thing here is the this one I'm actually moving, so I've got one that I'm moving here off of the surface, and this controls the vector direction in both directions. So that was a little bit fancy. And here I can set a different color to the swatch. So you can pick a net. Maybe this is the Husky house, purple and gold. Okay, pick accept. Great, but that's only in the preview. Once you bake it back to Rhino, that will determine what the material is. So I right click here, I bake, and I'll put it on the Grasshopper screen. I wish I had another layer. Maybe I'll put it on this layer just because I know I'm not using it. Let's turn off the Grasshopper definition, and there we have, you know, a different style of screen. There's another feature called snapshots that are great. They save an image of your model and a view of your model and materials. And there's a lot included in that. For homework, take a look at snapshots. There's some videos out there. And the last command here, I'm hearing music. The last command here that's kind of fun to do is turntable. and you can set the speed of that. And you notice this, I put a fireplace on this one, and I didn't do that on ours. I haven't really figured out what's going on the back elevation yet, obviously. But anyway, the turntable command is a fun way to show your model. So let's go ahead and open it up for questions, and then I'll get the video posted. Again, they're going to the getting started folder here. Kyle's done too, the ski binding, and he did one on shrink wrap, which I think was a little horrifying to those who didn't know Rhino. So it's there. It's a wonderful tutorial, but it kind of jumped right into not really much getting started there. But also take a look at the Rhino 7 getting started. This is referred to as project-based learning, so you can build something while you're learning instead of just doing, a series of exercises that don't produce something. So anyway, let's go once, going twice, going 3 times. If there are no more questions, I'll go ahead and end the session and get the video posted. So email, if you have any questions, you'd rather just email them, mary@mcneel.com. I hope you had fun today and saw some good commands that Rhino 8 adds, and just I think someone referred to it as magic sauce, right? It's just a totally new way of working, and it's pretty exciting to be able to, do this in a getting started without having to mention construction planes. So there's a lot more to this. There's dimensions, there's clipping planes, there's sections, of course, creating your own layouts and making your own details. All of that is something that I'll do in another video offline, but it's a really good model to explore those features with. Okay, I'll stop the recording